I can do this without a hammer.
Bang, bang.
I
JP,
have a hammer.
are you ready to take over?
I am.
Needs that. We're gonna have to get a couple.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Getting reception today.
Oh, you don't need to bang with
Be
this
the
one.
mantle of power.
Bang, bang.
On over to the Operations Oversight Committee.
Your mic.
I want to go ahead and take a roll call of all trustees present.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Harris. This meeting is being conducted virtually and in person, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Trustees Kehoe and Ginsburg will not be participating in today's meeting. Mr. Razzo,
Present.
Ms. Gray, Mr. Rue,
Present.
Mr. Sanchez.
Here.
Mr. Oakham,
Present.
Mr. Green,
Present.
Mr. Robbins,
Present.
Mr. Moore,
I'm here.
Chair Harris.
Here.
Staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, AEOs JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice. Other staff and managers participating include Chat Arande, Eugenia Durr, Alex Ochoa, and Kevin Hunter. Trustees, please use the raise your hand Zoom option to be placed in queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute your mics until you are ready to speak, and we may now proceed with the agenda. And there were no requests received for teleconference meeting attendance under AB 2449.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I needed a motion to approve the minutes of the May 1st meeting. Second.
Second.
Terry, go ahead and take a roll call.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye. Only committee members can vote.
Mr. Green,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Chair Harris.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, public comment. I've received no requests from the public to address the committee. So we'll go down to non-consent items number 5. It'd be requests for proposal, taxonomy and knowledge management consulting services. And thank you for making me look up what taxonomy means. That was good. So,
Ah, well, you beat me to the punch then.
well, you can enlighten all of us.
Okay, so I do have a presentation prepared, but it's up to you if you would like me to give it, or,
Would you all prefer the presentation, or are you satisfied with the written document that was provided to you? I will let you make the call.
I think we're satisfied.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think a
Yeah.
presentation is necessary.
okay.
Sounds like we read it, and like I say, we looked up what taxonomy means, so we're good to go.
I did have one question.
Okay,
and
Mr.
that-
Moore, go ahead.
And that was very benign question. The proposal, the RFP format, is that the standard format for RFPs for LACERA?
It is my understanding that it is.
Okay, it's the only question I had.
All right. No other questions?
Mr. Chair, we do need a motion, hopefully to move it forward so that we can issue the RFP.
Correct.
So moved.
All right.
Thank you.
Terry?
Mr. Sanchez? Aye. Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Chair Harris?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much. Brings us down to item number 6, reports. Mr. Lugo,
Yes.
we do want a report from you.
You want to, this will be brief. No, good morning, committee members.
That's okay too.
Good morning, committee members. So the operations briefing report is available to you. Again, we'd like to thank Trustee Moore for the suggestions he made a couple of months ago to make the report a little bit easier to digest. So you see there's about 11 updates that were new from last month. And again, JJ, myself, and the team are available for any particular questions on those particular updates. So with that, I'll
All right, and
Yeah,
I
for
do want to thank
questions.
Mr. Moore for his suggestions, and it does make it much easier to follow what's been updated. So thank you very much for that. Any questions from anyone?
Nope.
If I may
Mr. Moore and
add,
Mr. Robbins? Okay.
I don't have any,
if I may
any
add just one
notes.
thing, oh, I'm sorry,
I'm good.
He's good.
I apologize.
okay.
It's not on the report, but it is operational in nature, and so it fits with the operational briefing. I wanted to let you know that, as we mentioned, we moved staff down to the Member Service Center. And we've added 60 additional appointments for in-person appointments and 40 for virtual appointments for the month of June. And we're working on the July and August calendar so that you can see the benefit of having that additional staff now in those roles. So I just thought that would be something that the trustees might like to hear.
Okay. Well, if I could just ask, just to make sure, we'd heard someone had been given some erroneous information that there were no in-person meetings available.
So I think that was
That is erroneous, correct?
Yes, it is. It is erroneous, but I think it was a miscommunication of what happened when I think that person called. And at the time that person called, there wasn't any appointments available online because we were in the process of redoing the calendar to accommodate the additional staff. So the way that our system works, right now we have it set up as a 90-day rolling system. So 90 days out, we plan for a certain number of appointments every single day based on staffing and so forth and so on. The 91st day, it's a new calendar. And then, so if you look 90 days out, so in the process of getting it set up, they didn't have it set up for that first day. And when that 91st day rolled over to be the 90th day, it hadn't showed yet.
Okay.
And so I think that's where it got it. And I think there was a miscommunication on how we explained it to that individual.
Okay. Thank you very much for that explanation. I appreciate that. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, with that.
Yeah, I just one for, how's the, just, we talked about it before, but how's that, that multi-level of contact approach with the touch base?
The omni-channel?
Yeah, how's it going with that? Are you getting more steam with, and less impact on the full package and, simple questions? How's that going?
I don't know if we have enough data yet to tell you, how successful it is in reducing the number of calls, but I can say that the feedback that we've got from members is they appreciate it, right? So we're giving them different opportunities. We're giving them follow-up information. So over time, I would say probably in a couple of months, we'll take a look back and see if it's had any impact on the operations in terms of reducing the number of calls. One of the things that we're still working on is trying to get a good sense of how do we track what people are calling for and how many times they have to recontact us for that. So every time somebody contacts us, whether it's in person or virtual or whether it's a call, we record, what they're contacting us about, and that's what drives. If you look at the CEO report, the top 3 calls or 3 contacts that we get. What we're trying to look at is finding out, well, how do I tell if they had to recall with follow-up questions? And then ultimately from there, we'll look at, well, did they have to recall for follow-up questions because we didn't provide it to them? Or it's just something that, they just want reaffirmation about or additional information about. That requires a little bit more analysis and technology than we have currently set up, but we're working on it. So one of the things, like we have the RFP out and we're currently going through the process of evaluating vendors for a new communications platform. Part of that is having the AI within that platform to do some of that analytical, data-driven analytics so that we can get a better sense.
Yeah, that Omni thing, it's really cool concept, and I think it helps the staff and from inundation, with it's a really good program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go into reports B, which is a rehired retirees automated notification process. We're going to table this for our next meeting, as the trustee who really wanted this information and wanted to hear the presentation is not with us today. So rather than make this presentation now, we'll hold that till the next meeting and put that on the agenda for that presentation to be made then. Which takes us down to C, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework and Introduction Education Series Part 2. You're on again.
I know. Good morning, everyone. So, I guess last week we talked about very briefly about NIST, right?
Yes.
And We talked about the different function, the tiers, maturity tiers, and then we talked about the functions. This time, I'm just going to continue on and complete all those functions. I've made it very simple. We'll continue with example of a house, right? Your home. And in fact, I think you all might take this home and say, well, am I following each one of these functions, right? So let's go ahead with the first slide, please, which is your identify function, right? The identify function is you identify things within your house, things that need to be protected. A couple of things that you do is you take an inventory in your home of all the possessions you have, right? Same thing on the network, right? At LACERA, we're going to take a look at all the data that we have, all the network devices, all that stuff that we have. We try to understand our business environment. So at your home, you're trying to find out which neighborhood you live in. What is that status of that neighborhood? How does that security for that neighborhood should be like? Governance is another thing. You set rules within your house. You're going to tell your teenage kid, maybe you better turn on the alarm before you shut the door, or turn off the alarm when you walk into the door, things like that. Or leave the keys here, whatever, right? Those are the governance functions. Risk assessment is where you're thinking about the certain area, you're taking all the risks, tabulating all the risks. Another thing is, okay, what's your strategy, right? How are you going to plan on keeping your home secure? Then you're going to think about who comes into your house, right? Contractors, people walk in, are they, just like Trustee Green talked about, if you're giving the contract to Palo Alto, are we sure we're going to do those background checks, right? So the same thing, right? Are we doing those kind of checks? Is it a bonded contractor or not? Next slide, please. The protect function is very much how would you protect your house, right? You'd think about doors, locks, alarms that you'd set, cameras that you would set up inside your house. Those are the things that you would do. The same thing in our environment, right? At LACERA, what we'll do is we will make sure that we have good passwords. We have multi-factor authentication in place. We make sure that data that is to be protected is protected adequately. Things like we're going to take that data and we're going to encrypt it. If it's a social security number field, or if it's a field that contains data that contains PHI type health information, then we're going to make sure that we're going to protect that data. Who gets to see it, right? And how do they see it? Those are the things that we do in terms of the protection functions. So among the protect functions, what you're going to see is you're going to see something like a PRAC. It's like giving the right keys to the right people. That's what I was trying to mention, right? When we do the measurements, we'll be doing it at each one of these sections that you see, the subsections that you see. Awareness training. Okay, how do you make sure that everybody is aware, right? That's where we do the cyber awareness training on an annual basis during our cybersecurity month, where we hold lunch and learns for our staff, our members, or the articles that we'll write in our member letters about how to keep yourself safe, right? That's something that we're going to start doing going forward. Is there will be an article from the cybersecurity team here in each one of those newsletters. What are the processes, right? Develop a set of house rules. You make sure that you have these house rules, right? In terms of cybersecurity, establish policies, procedures. That's how you go about with the protect function. Maintenance, then you've got to maintain them. Like, a policy can get old. You got a new set of locks, policy changes. You get a digital lock, the policy and procedure changes. And make sure that those kind of policies and procedures within LACERA are changed in a periodic manner. Then you think about all the protective technology that you're going to put in place. You're thinking about, like I talked about, cameras, alarm systems, make sure that that alarm actually rings to a alarm company that's actually going to send someone to take a look as to who's around your house, or informing the police if they want to escalate that, right? So that if there's an actual break-in. So those kind of mechanisms. The detect function is the next function, which is where you begin to detect, right? You've got all these alarm systems on, you've got cameras on, and you suddenly think about, okay, well, now I've started detecting, right? And then I start detecting all the anomalies. Who hasn't had the problem where, you know, an alarm goes off, it's really not an alarm, right? Especially this happens with folks that have cameras. A stray cat walks around, it detects that movement, and you've got that alarm going off saying someone's in your front yard or your backyard, right? And it turns out to be a cat. You look at that and say, oh, it's an anomaly, right? That kind of a thing. Or if it's an actual person, it could be someone that just, or your family member that just forgot to turn on an alarm. So those kind of things we kind of take a look at in our detect function at LACERA, where we are trying to detect and see if someone is inadvertently trying to use a password and they've just forgotten their password, right? They've forgotten their password, they try 3 times and they get locked out, but that should throw an alarm. And we would reach back out and say, hey, did you really try that password? Yes or no? If it's a no, yes, it's a different response. If it's a no, it's a very different response, right? Then we tell them to change their password or do something, right? Based upon that. So again, do we have the right detection mechanisms? Another thing is, yes, those alarms are there in your house, but are you periodically checking to see if those little sensors are there, whether the battery is up, you know, has the adequate power, or has the power run out on the battery and that alarm is no longer working, right? So that's where you make sure that you maintain these detection functions as well. Next slide, please. The respond function. The respond function is when something does happen, how do you respond, right? What is that mechanism that you would respond if there was an intruder or a fire, right? Hopefully, in your protect function, you would have thought about a fire extinguisher in your house so that you can make sure that that fire doesn't spread. You'll take out your fire extinguisher and use it. The same thing is with cybersecurity. When we are doing the respond function, we try to make sure that the impact that is happening is as minimal as possible so that that particular impact doesn't spread across. So that's where we need that, you know, I talked about the MDR service earlier, right? That's why we need these kind of services. We need adequate detection mechanisms in place so that we can respond to these threats. And then some of those responses could be automated. So you try to see, hey, can I automate this? The faster there's this response that can happen, the better, right? So if, for example, a safe in your house is being broken into, then you would expect within a couple of seconds something to happen, the law enforcement to be out of the front door, right? Or somebody broke into your front door, then that should happen. You'd expect that. So that response. Then what about communications? Do we have the adequate communications in place when something like that happens? That means people are not running in different directions trying to solve the problem in terms of responses. Analysis, just like you would investigate the cause of a smoke or anything like that, you would go ahead and do an analysis on it. Then, okay, what's the medication, right? This involves, okay, how do I prevent further damage from happening? Improvements, always. After an incident, there's lessons learned, there's a reflection, and then you say, okay, how can I prevent this from happening again, right? Next slide, please. Is the recover function, the most important function, right? When after something happens, you're sitting down and you're looking at it and say, okay, well, it's almost like rebuilding your home after a storm. You're going to start thinking about, okay, how do I restore that data? How do I make sure that this data is not accessed anymore, right? How do I have adequate backups so that I can restore the data? Have you checked on those backups? Are we going to check on those backups in the future? Are we going to have a BCP exercise, a tabletop exercise that involves the cybersecurity incident, right? In your house, are you going to have those kind of mechanisms? Then it's almost like recovery planning, right? That's where the recovery planning comes in place. Then afterwards, after the storm, you might want to reinforce windows. Were the windows and the doors adequate enough to bear that storm? If they were not, then you're going to go out and get better windows and doors, right? The same thing here is we will look at where our cybersecurity failed, and then we will try to see if we can go ahead and get better cybersecurity, better technology. Very much goes to the fact that, okay, we're having this contract for 3 years, right? We don't know what the future technology holds, given technology is moving so fast. So that's something to consider. Communications is really important, right? When it comes to having a cyber incident or even a break-in your house, making sure your neighbors are informed, everybody else is informed. In a cyber incident, it's very important that you have planned for, okay, if there's a cyber incident, how is the legal department going to write out memos? Do you have sample templates already written in terms of your communication to your members? Do you have the mechanisms in place so that you can inform all members through mail or through phone or through whatever means of communication when you have a cyber incident? How do you handle, inquiries that may come down from law enforcement or from news outlets and other places? Having these things in terms of your recovery function be addressed ahead of time is very important. So that covers the recovery function. So ultimately, what happens is when you are living in a community, what do you usually have? You have an HOA, right? That HOA is the governing function that kind of defines. Certain HOAs will say, you're not going to paint your house pink, right? They have rules as to whether you can hang your Christmas lights out there year long, right? They'll tell you to remove those Christmas lights or whatever, right? Those rules are there because they also perform a governing function as to how they're going to address different things in terms of ensuring all the roofs for, if it's a community community that actually guarantees that your roof will be leak proof. So those kind of things, the same thing here on the govern function. You as trustees are pretty much part of that governing function, right? And the ISC is also part of that governing function, which is the Information Security Committee, which is part of the WISP, that I was talking about. So that's where it is. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I went through it pretty fast, so because given the time constraint.
Anyone have any questions?
Just a comment.
Okay.
Can you review a couple of those things, please? No, I'm teasing. You've got 2 reports like that, and we're supposed to remember that stuff.
So
The bottom line, you have this under control.
yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rokamaz.
and Bonnie will be sending a cheat sheet. So,
Anyone else? Mr. Robbins or Mr. Moore?
No.
okay. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chad.
We're down to item number 7, items for staff review.
I have nothing.
And items for future agendas.
I have nothing for that.
I think for the future agenda, we're just going to make sure we bring back the
Right.
presentation.
the next time.
Right, okay. Go to the order. Let's go around the horseshoe. Mr. Sanchez.
We already did before, so
You're good. All right. Nothing further to add. Anyone else?
No, I have nothing further to add.
All right. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We're-
Thank you.
Recording